silliest he's heard is that some children call things they've never seen absurd and have their doubts of true things and won't believe because they say, if you but knew all things, there is no Santa Claus.
Grandfather says he knows him and sees him every year, and Santa often shows him the playthings he brings here. He says too, Santa told him, if any girls and boys laugh at and won't uphold him, they'll not get any toys.
It was so long ago that the world has forgotten the name of the town in which a little boy named Hans.
Little Hans lived with his aunt. She was quite an old lady. She was not always kind to Hans. He loved her still and forgot that she was ever unkind to him at times.
Hans went to school with many other boys, but he was not clothed as they were. He had to wear the same clothes both weekdays and Sundays, the same in the summer and in the winter.
It was winter. Everything was wrapped in snow and glazed with ice. The frost was pinching its cheeks and biting the toes of little boys and making them run, jump, and dance to keep warm.
The children were wild with the excitement, for there were secrets in the air. Everyone was busy making gifts for some loved one.
It was the night before Christmas. The schoolmaster and his students gathered for the midnight worship at the church. All of the boys were well clothed with heavy coats, fur caps, thick mittens, and very heavy and warm shoes.
But little Hans had only a poor ragged suit with no overcoat, no mittens, and his shoes were wooden ones. It was a very cold night, and the boys had to walk fast to keep warm. But little Hans did not mind the cold so much, because the stars smiled down upon him, each one glittering and flashing in the darkness. The snow was a sparkling mass, and Hans wondered if the stars could see themselves reflected in the tiny snow crystals falling on the earth.
At last they reached the church. The windows were shedding a golden light on the darkness of a cold winter night. The worshippers quietly walked into the church. It was a beautiful place to Hans. He was always happy to come here.
The candles were lighted and they burnt brighter and brighter, filling the church with a beautiful, peaceful light. The organ softly sent its tones, each one growing richer, deeper, and sweeter.
Gradually, the voices of choir boys and the tones of the organ filled the old church with beautiful music. Little Hans felt as though his soul was filled with delights. His face was radiant, though shining by divine inspiration. Many times, little Hans knelt and offered thanks for the blessings that he had received during that year.
The people then quietly left the church into the cold of the night. Little Hans was the last one out. As he made his way down the icy steps, he noticed a little boy sitting on the steps with his head resting against the church. The boy was asleep.
His face was beautiful and glowed in the golden light. Beside him, tied in a cloth, were a hammer, a saw, and other tools of a carpenter.
He had no shoes and no stockings on his feet, although his clothing was clean and pierced white. It grieved Hans that the little boy had no shoes. Little Hans took from his right foot the wooden shoe and placed it in front of the sleeping child. Hans then limped along the ice and snow, not feeling how cold it was, but only thinking of the poor child asleep out in the cold.
The other boys were
3, 2, 1.
The other boys were talking of the good things awaiting them at home, of the feast, the plum pudding, the Christmas trees, and the many drums and wagons that they would have that night.
When Hans arrived home, he found his aunt awaiting him. When she saw that he had only one shoe, even little Hans told her the story. She was angry with him and sent him to bed. Hans placed the wooden shoe from his left foot at the fireside and went to bed.
The first sunlight went into Hans' bedroom and kissed him the next morning. Little Hans awoke and flew downstairs to the fireplace to find his shoe. Hans rubbed his eyes. To his great surprise, there was both of his wooden shoes filled with beautiful toys, and by the fireside he found warm clothing and many other things to make him comfortable and happy.
Hearing loud voices, Hans went to the door. The people were standing around the priest. He told Hans that where he had seen the child asleep on the church steps, in the window above, there was a beautiful crown set with precious jewels. He said that the child was the Christ child, and that it was he with whom Hans had shared his wooden shoes.
The people bowed before that miracle that the good Lord had seen to fit,
to reward the faith and charity of a child.
the far east grew many pine trees. Most were tall trees, but there was one tree that was not so tall. The tall trees could see far out over the hilltops and into the valleys, and they could hear all the noises that went on beyond the forest. But the little tree could not see nor hear these things at all. One night in the winter, there seemed to be something strange happening in the little town. The little tree did not understand what it was all about. It listened a while and then shouted to all its tall neighbors.
Will you tell me what is happening?
The shepherds are on the hilltops, are telling strange stories. The air is filled with sweet music, and there is a star coming up in the east, traveling westward. The shepherds say that they are waiting for it to stop and shine over a stable in their little town. I have not heard why it is going to stop there, but I will look again.
So the tall tree lifted up its head so that it might hear more of the wonderful story. It stooped down again and whispered to the little tree,
Little tree, listen! There are also angels among the shepherds. They seem to be awaiting the birth of a little child who will be a king among the people. And the beautiful star will shine above the stable where the little king will be laid in a manger.
The little tree again raised its head to listen, and the little tree thought to itself,
It is very strange indeed. Oh, how I wish that I could see it all.
Everything then became quiet and peaceful in the forest. Then suddenly, the town and the forest was illuminated with a strange light that made everything as bright as day, and the air was filled with angels and beautiful music. The people, the trees, and the stars lifted up their voices and sang together. The little tree was filled with fear and wonder, and its tall friends said,
Listen, listen, little tree! The Christ has come, the King, and the whole world is singing beautiful music. There are wise men coming from the east, bringing beautiful gifts to the Christ child. The angels are upon the earth, and they bear gifts of gold and beautiful stones. I will tell you more.
The tall tree lifted up its head, stooped again, and whispered to the little tree,
Look, little tree, they are coming this way. The angels are coming here, into our forest. Lift up your head, and you'll see them as they pass.
The little tree lifted up its head and vaguely saw the white angels and heard the sweet voices.
They are coming toward me. What shall I do?
In fear, it bent its head so low that it almost touched the ground. But the music came nearer, and the little tree felt a tender hand upon its branches. And a gentle voice said to it,
Arise, little tree, and come with us, for we have come into the forest to seek you. Yes, you, the smallest among the trees, are our gift bearer. Come, lift up your head.
In fear and trembling, the little tree did as the angel told it. But when it looked into the angel's face and saw the love there, all fear was gone. The little tree said to the angel,
Yes, I will come with you to the little Christ child in the manger.
So the angels brought their gifts of precious jewels and shining gold, and fastened them upon the branches of the little tree. Then the angels lifted up the little tree from the ground and carried it, loaded with precious gifts, to the feet of the